Well, today the White House is facing a lot of Republican criticism after it confirmed that a $400 million cash payment was made to Iran, and it was in fact contingent on the release of American prisoners. Now, it was the first time the State Department acknowledged that fact. The 4 U.S. hostages were released in January, seen here the same day of the money drop-off in Iran. Now, one of them was Washington Post Tehran bureau chief Jason Rezaian. Many critics, including Donald Trump, have called it a ransom payment. CBS News foreign affairs correspondent Margaret Brennan joins me now to break this all down. So, it is not U.S. policy to pay ransom. How is this different?
Well, President Obama is getting some pushback because he was adamant when he said that just a few weeks ago, that this was absolutely not ransom and that the U.S. handed over cash because Iran's banking system's cut off, so they couldn't pay them any other way. The thing that is tricky on this is the timeline that the Wall Street Journal was able to piece together, which sort of forced the hand of the State Department to acknowledge, well, there was some linkage here. Yes, the negotiations for these 3 things, the nuclear deal, the prisoners, and this failed arms deal from 35 years ago. That's what the money was linked to. $400 million in Iranian cash returned to it, plus interest from U.S. taxpayer money. So the $400 million cash was loaded onto a plane in Geneva, and that plane wasn't allowed to take off until the American prisoners were put on the plane in Tehran. And so it's that exact timing, that sort of orchestration and choreography that raised some eyebrows here, because the White House did acknowledge the $1.7 billion payment, the $400 million up front, but they didn't really acknowledge that choreography because perhaps it would raise some questions, like we're getting now from a lot of Republican critics saying, look, call it what you want, but it looks a heck of a lot like ransom.
Was it ransom? Was it just the proper use of leverage? They want the money. They have some people that we want. Let's make it work together.
But what we know, besides the political heat on this, is what was happening behind the scenes. This was extremely complicated and diplomatic achievement just to get to the nuclear deal. So on the same day the nuclear deal goes into effect, the U.S. signs this agreement to pay the $1.7 billion to finalize a 36-year dispute over a failed arms deal, and they get the prisoners back. So you have John Kerry and Javad Zarif at the negotiating table hammering this out. Meanwhile, back in Tehran, the people who were actually holding the American prisoners hostage started to play some games, American diplomats say. The parents, the mother of Jason Rezaian and Jason Rezaian's wife, all of a sudden disappeared at the airport. So all of this was supposed to take place January 16th. It doesn't actually happen until the 17th. And what the State Department would say is, look, all this was so complicated on so many levels, we needed leverage. So we said, you're not getting the money until these guys are on the plane and you're out. So the plane's literally crisscrossed in the sky. So in defense of the diplomats, they'd say, look, we had to use what leverage we had. Of course, it's a matter of perspective, because Iranians will say this was ransom. The IRGC, their military arm, says that. And Republican critics are saying that too.
Yes, perspective is everything. Thank you very much, Margaret Brennan.